What's going on, traders? This is Andrew O'Connell with Pristine Capital, coming at you with yet another market recap video. It is April 13th, 2021. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy this content, and I will continue to make it for you. Today, we're going to talk about the price action in the indices. We had a lot going on under the hood, so we'll talk about that with our sectors and style factors. We'll talk about some of my trades for the day, and then we'll wrap up with our options order flow. There was a lot of a really interesting order flow today as well. Before we jump in, quick risk disclaimer: nothing in this video should be construed as investment advice or recommendations. Please follow your own trading plan. And last but certainly not least, do not YOLO your entire account into any one of my trades. All right, let's jump in here. We have a lot to cover. Alrighty. So for our box scores today, we have the S&P 500 finish up 0.3%. We had the NASDAQ QQQ finish up 1.17%. We had the IWM small caps, biggest loser for today, down 0.26%. And we had the Dow Jones close down 0.23%. So the big news for today was, in the morning, we found out that the J&J vaccine was actually being pulled. You know, there were a couple people that took the vaccine that ended up getting blood clots. So never fun. So yeah, that one is being pulled, and we don't really know for how long. It's actually like really wonky, because I just took that J&J vaccine literally 2 days ago. So I saw that headline come up and I was like, geez, you gotta be kidding me. But yeah, that's a little aside there. But anyway, yeah, so that was definitely a big shakeup in the pre-market. So what I noticed was, as soon as that news hit the tape, the NASDAQ got very strong, and then the small caps and the Dow Jones started selling off a bit. So we ended up getting this dynamic where, you know, essentially like the reopening trade took a step backward, and then it was almost like that reshuttering trade took a step forward. So names like Zoom, Peloton, Tesla, you know, all these high flyers from 2020 really had their revival today. So interesting price action. If we look at our S&P 500, you can see we're continuing to ride this 5-day exponential moving average higher. We're getting close to this target level of 4153 on the S&P 500. I actually have a broken wing called Butterfly on the books. So if we do end up getting there by Friday, that's right in my profit zone. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But yeah, you can see here, you know, what I'm looking at here is we're getting pretty extended. And I feel like a broken record. You know, we've been extended for the past couple days here. But yeah, you know, we're certainly bullish. You know, there's no doubt about that. But if you look at our monthly value area here, we've, you know, gone leaps and bounds above it. And yeah, we're way above all these key moving averages. If we look here at our QQQ, if you look here, so yeah, you can see the Q is also very bullish today. And you can see, you know, we got this powerful gap, and I think it was, you know, like I said, due to that news. And yeah, we closed at a new all-time high for the NASDAQ. So you can see this one as well, you know, getting pretty extended. But we are getting this 20-day moving average crossing over this 50-day. So, you know, overall, that's a very good thing. If we pull up our IWM, a bit of a different story here. I'm actually going to pull up, you know, just these Russell futures. So you can see here, the Russell, which had been leading us, you know, since the election, is now definitely starting to slow up a little bit. So you can see we're stuck in this monthly value area. We're below all the key moving averages, and we are making some lower lows here. We're making lower lows and lower highs. What I am noticing is pretty much every time we dip below this monthly point of control, there are buyers that are coming in and pushing this thing back above. But as I look at this, I think if we are to get some volatility coming up, you know, this month, the next couple weeks, whatever, I would imagine the IWM would likely be the first to crack, given that it's kind of like teetering on the edge right now, even though, you know, in the other indices we're making new highs and, you know, very strong tape. And if we pull up our Dow Jones, Down slightly for the day. This one also trending above that 5-day EMA. And you can see, even though we got the news that J&J's vaccine was being pulled, it's not like it closed on the lows or anything. So, overall still looking bullish. Dow Jones a bit less extended from these key moving averages and the monthly value area. So now let's pull up our FinViz heat map. And one thing that I am noticing is that on the surface, it's like, okay, the market is going up. But I'm noticing, this happens quite frequently when tech is leading. These tech stocks are moving higher, and therefore, there's such big weights in the indices that the indices are moving higher. But a lot of the other names are not. So in terms of like advancers and decliners, we had more decliners stay in the NASDAQ than advancers. Same thing in the S&P 500. Same thing in the Dow Jones. Same thing in the Russell 2000. So there's definitely selling under the surface and this rotation back into these tech names. So you can see NVIDIA, really nice day. Tesla, up 8.6%. You can see the banks were a little bit weak for the day. And a lot of these reopening type plays, like the travel names, industrials, those sorts of names. Tesla. We'll talk about this one a little bit more when we go through our options order flow. Yeah, really nice performance here. This is day one of a breakout above this monthly value area. So definitely a name I'll be watching pretty closely tomorrow. And if we pull up our sectors, you can see here, we have at the top of our list, we have the home builders, software, and technology. I still am long my diagonal calls in the XLK Technology Fund. But yeah, strong performances here, a little bit of profit taking in the home builders. And then our laggards for the day, you can see all three of these sectors that are at the bottom of our list are actually pretty positive in today's trading session. So a good day for a solar ETF, biotech, and the YOLO cannabis ETF. Really the laggards were, you can see we had the financials lagging a bit, and then the regional banks, down over 2%. If we look at our style factors, you will see the leaders for the day, growth and momentum style factors. You can see really nice days. Our laggards were high beta and the cyclical. So very clear again, a lot of these reopening stocks really under pressure, whereas these like old COVID winners like Zoom, Teladoc, those sorts of names, they're all doing okay. Another thing that I want to go through, and this is really what, drove me for most of the trading session today. So you can see this risk indicator that I've been tracking. Like I said, I put this together because in February I got a bit blindsided by this sell-off. And again, it was one of those where we were extended from the key moving averages, but it just felt like the market was bulletproof. And it was like, there's no way the market's going down. But what you can see here is, whenever we get this cluster of these four white candles, typically throughout 2020, 2019, even a couple years back, a lot of times it does precede some selling activity in the market here. So yeah, you can see this time right here, four white candles, boom, a little bit of selling. These four white candles, same thing. And same exact thing in February. So when I made this thing, really saved it down on my trading view, it was like somewhere down here. And I was like, man, I just want to build out some sort of risk management tool just in case, this happens again or whatever. I want to be better prepared. For quite some time, this thing never flashed. So for about a month and a half, pretty smooth sailing here. Now you can see these past 4 days, this is the signal right here. So for me, I wanted to make sure, okay, the signal triggered, nothing is a silver bullet. Maybe it, the market just stays risk on or whatever. But I want to make sure if I'm using a tool like this, I just make sure to be responsible and kind of, listen to the tool. And we'll see, I'm seeing a lot of, just pure price action traders that, they're like, oh my gosh, this market just keeps going up. It's never going to stop. I'm seeing a lot of people, I saw somebody else today that was like, oh, the secret to this market is just getting levered long tech. And, those are just kind of like key tells in terms of sentiment. Because literally a couple weeks ago, nobody would have told you, down here, nobody would have said, oh, the secret to this market is getting levered long tech. Down here, it was like, we have inflation coming and, all these tech stocks, they're trading at such high multiples. So that means the multiples need to come down and these tech stocks are going to go even lower. Now it's like, emotional gap higher, emotional gap higher, emotional gap higher. So like kind of some crazy market structure. And now up here, you're seeing a lot of people come out and saying like, oh yeah, the secret's just getting long the tech. So like, it's it's interesting. We'll see what happens. And then the other thing, the reason why I'm paying close attention to this is because, we're getting very close to options expiration week as well. And I'm seeing we're sitting on a lot of long dealer gamma. And that prevents the market from really moving organically. Because essentially, like, whenever flows are coming in the options market, these dealers, they're essentially hedging in the opposite direction of the flows. So it kind of like buoys the market, makes it tough for the market to really move all that much to the up or downside. And typically after options expiration, you can see a lot of this gamma roll off. And that just happens because options players start closing down their positions. They move on to the next expiration month. So it ends up being sort of like a reset of the game board. And you can see a lot more free movement in the market. So yeah, again, it's kind of like sentiment's moving a bit higher, risk indicators flashing. It's, options expiration this week. Then the other thing is in 2021, every month, and I'm not saying this is going to happen again, but every month, the first 2 weeks have been fantastic. And then the market gets much tougher in the latter half of the month. I don't know why that's been happening, but that's just been the pattern. So as I'm seeing all these things line up, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that, I'm being prudent. The other thing I have to make sure, though, is if this VVIX risk indicator, doesn't manifest and we don't get that selling at some point next week, I want to make sure that I'm adapting, I'm not getting stuck in a bias, that sort of thing. Because I think like for a lot of people when they take on like either a neutral bias or even like a bearish bias, which is kind of like what I've moved to a little bit, they just become like attached to it. It's like it has to work and you can really get stuck in a bearish bias, which you don't want to do. So yeah, tactically I've scaled out of a lot of exposure and added some shorts onto the books. But we'll just have to see how it plays out. So yeah, for some trades for the day, I took some NVIDIA common stock in the pre-market. Was doing some reading on the news that came out around this company yesterday. Definitely seems significant. And I saw that this company was getting a bunch of analyst upgrades in the morning. So I was like, all right, NVIDIA, it's a very liquid stock. It's a mega cap stock. It's in the semis, which is one of the strongest groups in the market. I was like, this is a no-brainer. I think these asset management firms are going to, allocate to this stock. So I got in at about 608 on a nice little dip in the morning. And you can see this one closed pretty nicely. So we got to close up at new highs. Oh my gosh, is this new highs? Yeah, it is. You can see NVIDIA, this is a pretty fresh breakout too. So yeah, looking pretty good. We'll see what happens. I could definitely see this one going to like $700 in the intermediate term. So we'll see. But so we have that. I also took a starter position in Roblox. And Roblox is a name that I've been doing a lot of research on. I really like this company. I posted the investor presentation on Twitter the other day, and I highly encourage anybody to watch it. I think this is a really fascinating company. Sort of like the rock and the hard place for me is seeing my risk indicators flash. A lot of times when the market becomes a little bit more risk off, these newer IPOs, they're sort of like the first things that people dump. But this was making a really nice move today. So I was like, you know what, I'll put the starter on now. And if I get the opportunity, I'll add to this position later. Because I would like to make this a core position. So I entered this one at $79.21. And then I'm having a nice close at around, $82.05. So yeah, looking pretty good for Roblox. And then you can see here for some options trades. I tried a call spread in Roku this morning. This was at 9:33 a.m. And then I looked at my VVIX indicator and I was like, all right, this is the fourth day. You know, why am I entering short-term options exposure? So I ended up essentially scratching this one, closed it out for 633. I had paid 643, so nothing crazy. I ended up seeing Roku did have a nice close. And this is one where I said in the comment there, you know, for this one, I would rather just participate in common stock, given what I'm seeing. So yeah, this one ended up closing nicely. They had some news as well. You can see this is the first day out of a nice breakout from this monthly value area high. So we had that one. And then I added some puts, really just for prudence, in the IWM. So I added some April 23rd, 219 strike puts. Essentially, you know, position size these for max loss. And this is really just, if we do get some sort of selling pressure or something like that, I want to make sure that I have some sort of hedge in place. You can see IWM. I alluded to this earlier, but, you know, IWM is showing some relative weakness. It's making lower highs and lower lows here. So I think if we get some sort of risk off, you know, this would be the first index in my mind where the dam would kind of break and we could get a close below this monthly point of control. We'll have to see. If we take a look at our options order flow, you can see here. So we have a lot of interesting order flow. So Tesla is the one that really sticks out. You can see there were call buyers that were coming into this thing, you know, from very early on in the session. The thing that is very noteworthy to me is they're buying the short-term calls. So you can see this was a big order for the June 2022s. But you can see these are literally Friday calls. Friday. These are for, you know, a week and a half from today. These are leaps. And then these are Friday. So this, I do think there's some hedge funds, high-frequency shops, whatever, just professional investors, that this Tesla gamma squeeze is just one of the plays in their playbook. And I notice every time Tesla goes on a heater, like a really nice run, it's always fueled by these call buyers buying the very short-term calls. Because essentially what happens, you know, they buy the out-of-the-money calls, the dealer has to hedge, so the dealer ends up buying the Tesla stock. So Tesla had a really nice run yesterday, or, you know, today actually. And I'm going to be watching this thing tomorrow. If we get more of those, you know, rabid call buyers, I think this one could go even higher and potentially squeeze at least to this, you know, target level at 771. But we'll have to see. You know, if we get like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of call buyers hitting the tape at like 931, this will be something I'm looking at for like a scalp trade. And then what else do we have here? A couple of other names that really stuck out. Micron is another name that stuck out. There's a lot of activity. This looks like it's likely all the same player because it's the same exact contract. Yeah, you can see, you know, some big money going into Micron. Micron actually had a very weak day today. So yeah, down 3.6%. And this is the other thing, when the breadth in the market starts to weaken, you know, on any given day, you can have, you know, a lot of stocks that are getting taken to the woodshed while the market is moving higher. So you can see Micron, you know, looks like a dip buyer coming in, but yeah, pretty tough day for Micron. Now let's pull up. There's a few others here. So we had Micron. We had the Tesla. I see a dip buyer. Looks like it's coming in for JP Morgan. These are the 2022 calls. JP Morgan also sold off a little bit today, but it did not close anywhere near the lows. It's really been just consolidating sideways. These banks are going to begin to report earnings tomorrow. So this essentially, yeah, JP Morgan is reporting tomorrow. So they're buying those calls, you know, literally a day before the earnings print. I'm curious to see how bank earnings go because, you know, there is like that recovery trade, like, oh my gosh, rates going higher. This is so great for banks. But you can see the banks, you know, they are quite a bit higher than they were pre-coronavirus. So there's definitely a recovery and then some that's baked in. So we'll have to see how that goes. So we had JP Morgan. Yeah, so you can see not all that many put buyers today, but we did have a few. So you can see a SPY hedger coming in, somebody buying puts on SLV. You can see some of these other mega names, so Google, Disney, a couple of hedges going up. But overall, very overwhelmingly bullish, at least for these large orders for today. So that about does it for this market recap video. Hope you all had an awesome trading day, and I will see you all tomorrow in the pre-market session.